Each of us has a unique career story to tell. For some, these fly high like rocket launches. For others, they're more like the game of chutes and ladders, with advances and setbacks along the way. Either way, we learn countless lessons from these experiences. And that's what we put into the spotlight here at Career Sessions Career Lessons. Join discussions featuring a variety of guests sharing their stories of ups and downs, as well as the secrets of their success and what drives them to continue moving forward. We break down the tools and resources that will help you establish your dream career and realize your professional goals. Here's your host, J.R. Lowry.
Hi, I'm J.R. Lowry, and this is Career Sessions Career Lessons, which is brought to you by Pathwise.io. Pathwise provides career and leadership coaching, courses, content, and community. Basic membership is free, so visit Pathwise and join today. Today, my guest is John Tarnoff. John is a studio executive turned coach. He's been leading the Mid-Career Lab for the past 11 years, and in that time has coached hundreds of mid and late career professionals, written a book called Boomer Reinvention, done a TEDx talk, and created a number of LinkedIn learning courses. Prior to all that, John worked in Hollywood, doing movie production and development for a number of studios. His work included a variety of films, including Diner, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and Kung Fu Panda, among others. He also led industry relations for the Carnegie Mellon Masters in Entertainment Management program and founded and ran an internet technology firm called Talkie. John earned a bachelor's degree as an independent scholar from Amherst College and later went back to get his master's in spiritual psychology from Santa Monica College, and he lives and works in the Los Angeles area. John, welcome, and thanks for doing the show with me today.
Well, thanks for having me on, JR. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you do executive and career transition coaching. So tell us about your practice.
Right. So I work with mid-career professionals who are going through some kind of a transition, whether they are waking up in mid-career and thinking, oh, I'm not really enjoying the work as much as I used to. What's going on? Is it time for some kind of a transition? Largely around meaning and purpose, which is something which happens to us in midlife. And you think, oh, I've climbed all of these mountains and what's left? Or where they are in a situation where they actually have been tossed out of a job and they need to kind of recover, and they're finding, as unfortunately most people are finding in mid-career, that it takes longer to get a job at this point in your life. And all of the procedures that you used to think were going to help you get a job no longer work because the hiring system is broken and all the guardrails have been changed.
So talk a little bit more about that. What do you mean the hiring system is broken, guardrails have changed?
Well, I think it starts with the fact that recruiters are overwhelmed with submissions, right? So the digital era means that jobs are broadcast more widely and people apply, whether they are qualified or not. So even if they're not qualified, someone's got to do something with those submissions. And as a result, so the saying goes, the average recruiter will spend an average of 7 seconds going over your resume. So your resume is not really a great way. Submitting your resume is not really a great way to get into a consideration for a job, not a great way to get yourself into an interview. And you need to focus more and more on your network and on personal connections and referrals and tap into what's known as the hidden job market, where 80% of the jobs are filled. Right. So those are some of the headlines that people have to understand and deal with in today's job search market.
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of a paradox. And I saw this when my kids were applying to college. It was during the sort of early days of the Common Application. And it's a similar kind of thing in that the easier you make it for somebody to apply, the more applications you're going to get. And I think on one hand, the colleges loved that because they could say, oh, we only take 3% of the applicants, who apply to our school. At the same time, you got to sift through all of those things. And it's the same for recruiters. I mean, the easier you make it for somebody to just hit send. I mean, you used to have to go to a copy shop, print your resume out on nice paper. Maybe you wrote a cover letter that was tailored to the job. Then you had to put it in the mail, take it to the mailbox. I mean, it took work.
That's right.
I'm really dating myself here, but that was sort of the old era, right? Of looking for a job. And now it's like, I go to LinkedIn, I hit send. The challenge with that is that it makes it harder for those recruiters who often have more jobs that they are responsible for filling at any one point in time, to really give you any legitimate attention. So of course you have to kind of break through the noise, not just send your resume in.
Exactly. So that really is the population that I work with, people who are looking for greater impact and meaning and purpose in their careers, and people who are finding themselves in need of a new career at plus minus 50 and trying to figure out the new world of work.
So you didn't start in this business. You transitioned into coaching. You had something of an epiphany that led you into coaching. Isn't that right?
So I come out of entertainment and as a film studio executive and producer, and kind of veered into technology in the 90s and had a startup with a partner. And we did the usual raising of the millions and spending of the millions. And then we actually had some really good high profile customers with our product. And then in 2001, everything washed out. And I was at a juncture. I was about to turn 50 and I thought, okay, what am I going to do at this point in my life? I didn't want to go back to the jobs that I had done in entertainment. And I felt like it was time to do something new. I really enjoyed the foray into technology, but I really wasn't sure where I was going to go.
Yeah.
So I decided to go back to school and took a psychology degree, mostly because I wanted to learn more about how minds work and how my mind worked, and learn a little bit more about myself and give myself some kind of reflective opportunity to chart a new way forward. And that's what in fact happened. And ironically, I wound up back in the business working for DreamWorks Animation for most of the 2000s, but in a very, very different role. Whereas before I was involved in content and production and essentially project management, product development, I was now involved with people. And it was a really interesting time for the company because it was moving from traditional animation to digital animation, which involved a lot of retooling and retraining and getting the engineers to understand the artists and the artists to understand the engineers. So I was kind of the right guy at the right time to help put a lot of programs together around that. I had a great run there. It was a kind of a Wild West period where we saw problems like, okay, let's go fix it. So that went on really great. And it really kind of gave me this eye open into education and training, and tapped into a lot of the work that I had previously done around people, around casting, not just casting actors, but casting crew. And how do you build teams and make it effective, particularly if you're having to build teams repeatedly to put together new projects. So it was a really fascinating synthesis of a lot of the skills that I'd learned. And then in 2008, 2009, the recession, they changed direction. I wanted to do more of this education and training work. They wanted to kind of tamp down on all that. So we had this kind of remarkable, for Hollywood, meeting of the minds about the fact that I needed to go, that I was no longer a fit. And it was a great lesson because that really speaks to what is happening now around layoffs and all of the turmoil in industry, is that fit is changing much more rapidly than ever before. And you used to be able to get into a job and stay with that job for 20 years, right? Things are changing too fast. It's hard to predict what skills are going to be needed next year. So people need to understand that the jobs that they get are not necessarily going to last as long. And they have to really focus, I think, particularly for mid-career, not so much on skills, but on strategy, on sense of really what is it that you deliver in the work that you do. And that really inspired the TEDx talk and the work that I've done as a coach to really get people out of these traditional mindsets about job and career and really focus on what I think are deeper aspects of what they deliver as professionals.
As a quick aside, your startup, Talkie, I remember your startup. I was doing operations consulting back in that era and working with a lot of companies on customer service experience. And I remember what you guys were doing at the time.
Yeah.
So, but it's like immediately remembered it. Yeah.
That is so wild. Yeah. We had this huge deal with Sprint to do this automated customer service character for their website. And then we got into this whole shootout between the marketing people and the customer service people. We were working for the customer service team.
Yeah.
And once marketing got wind of this, they decided that they hated it. And it came down to the head of customer service saying, if one person loves this character, it's a win. And marketing saying, if one person hates this character, it's a loss. And it came down to a dinner between those two execs and the CEO of Sprint to adjudicate who was going to win the fight.
Yeah.
Marketing won the fight.
As is usually the case when you're debating customer service. So yeah. Well, that's unfortunate, but I did remember it. So you had kind of a couple different eras in your Hollywood life, the sort of production, content creation piece, and then more of the people piece. Was it hard to leave that world when you finally did and moved into coaching?
No, it really was. I mean, this is kind of an interesting thing that I've had to wrestle with in my career, about the fact that there have been a lot of changes and I got fired a lot. And part of that had to do with just being in a volatile business and being at a company where the administration changed after 2 years and they brought someone else new and they needed their team. And, I got let go. Other times it was just a bad fit. Other times there was some toxicity going on. So I learned a lot about being in these diverse, volatile situations and how to turn setbacks into successes. So I don't miss it, because it's not that I never was in it. I was in it 100%, but I always felt that there was another thing to learn down the road. So I've been this kind of explorer mindset through all of it, and a bit of a shiny new toy guy, a little bit of I kind of get bored easily. I'm always looking for that new stimulus. So that really kind of carried me through. That's why I like production, because every film was a new product essentially, right? So that was a lot of fun. Anyway, it's all been a natural evolution. So I don't really miss it. And I still have a lot of friends in it. And I'm actually glad not to be in it today. I think that it's even more volatile than it's ever been. And I think it's a tough business. And now in 2024, it's getting tougher because it's shrinking again. So there's been 10, 15 years of expansion and overproduction, and now it's kind of contracting.
In general, I mean, you talked about in your TED Talk that I'd mentioned, that I was listening to before we started recording, that, you've had 18 jobs, 5 of them ended, 5 of them you quit, 7 of them you got fired from.
Right.
Your experience is more and more the norm. And
yes, exactly.
And so, what's crazy to me is the fact that, people sort of get that deer in the headlights look when they have to do a job search. It's like, you're probably going to have to do a job search every few years,
Right.
And so I think you've got to be prepared. And I'm sure that's part of what you talk to your clients about, is just kind of how to keep yourself in that game.
I'm really glad you bring this up, because this is, I think, very key to what every one of us needs to be thinking about in the job market if we want to continue to stay employed or stay working, is that we really have to focus on our deliverable, on what I call our superpower. Because if we can have a really clear sense of what we do well, what's useful and marketable in the marketplace, and we create a value proposition around that, and then use our network to connect to other people with a like mind. So I talk about building a community, and then use thought leadership to brand ourselves, the value that we deliver, to discuss the existential questions that are motivating change in our industry. We can build a referral network that will continually bring opportunities to us, so that in a certain way, we never have to search for a job again, because the network and the activity that we are doing outside of whatever our job might be right now is going to constantly have a flow going to it, so that we're going to see stuff happening all the time. And people will be saying, hey, you still working at that company? Because I got this opportunity over here. Would you be interested in this? And then when you need the job, then it's all hands on deck, because JR needs a gig. Oh, fantastic. He's available. Let's plug him in.
Well, if you think about, there's Free Agent Nation and Entrepreneurial You, different books that people have written over the years on this. I mean, whether you work truly as an entrepreneur, right, or work in a company, you have to be thinking about yourself somewhat as a free agent, right? I mean, the social contract that, existed for, our parents' generation doesn't exist anymore. You don't have one job your whole career. You're not going to get a pension at the end of it, or the gold watch. And, so as a consequence of that, you have to constantly be thinking, I could lose this job. Something could change. The fit, the need could change, as you mentioned in your situation with DreamWorks. And you've got to constantly not make yourself crazy about it, but just constantly have your toe in the water on what's out there. And I think for a lot of people, there's a lot about that that's really hard, right? The sort of self-promotion, the networking, the thinking about what their professional brand is. So maybe we can get a little bit more into some of those topics, but I know those are sort of, at the core of the kind of advice that you often give your clients.
It is definitely a uncomfortable proposition for many, if not most people. This idea that you really have two jobs. There's the job that you do that you get paid for, but then there's the job of managing your career, which is something that we never really had to do or have been trained to do. So that is really the requirement. And it is something that people complain about or don't really want to do. And there's a lot of flaming going on around LinkedIn. People just think, oh, LinkedIn, why do I have to be on LinkedIn? And LinkedIn it's a swamp and everyone's trying to sell me something. And, yeah, it's for job. If you need a job, it's a job, big job board, but people don't get it. It really is much more strategic and critical than that because it is the only place where you get to define your value in your terms and do so in a expressive, eloquent, and strategic fashion that is going to land with a prospect who will understand and align with who you are, what you do. So you have this opportunity to set up this marketing hub, if you will, through your LinkedIn profile. And people get this wrong most of the time. Your LinkedIn headline is not your job title, right? It should be a collection of the 3 or 4, maybe 5 specific value points that you deliver on. Your about section, many people don't even have an about section because they don't know what to write in it. Most people write a text bio version of their resume, which is ridiculous. Your about section is, again, from a marketing standpoint, this is a mission statement about who you are, why you do what you do, and where you're going to go with it. You want to create a conversation with someone out there. This is the icebreaker. This is the way of introducing them to what really makes you tick and gives you an opportunity to highlight 1 or 2 of the most salient achievements that you have been responsible for that you're proud of, and you can identify why those things are meaningful to you. And then in your experience section, that's your resume. And you want to map your LinkedIn experience section as your master resume, which you then pull from to create a PDF resume, which then you submit. So it becomes this very, very important cornerstone to the career management process. If you have a expressive, authentic, eloquent profile that properly represents you, that gives you an easier way to introduce yourself to other people, to be found by other people, and to get into conversations with other people who are on your wavelength. You don't want to have a zillion people in your contact database. We all kind of have this, there's this 500 plus. It's like, oh, if you don't have 500 plus on LinkedIn, it's like, you're not doing it right. Well, maybe it's good to have all these people because you never know where an opportunity is going to come from. But for the most part, people aren't on LinkedIn all the time, those 500 plus people. What you want to do is look through those people and the kind of friends of friends, that your second level connections, and start to really identify a community of shared interests. That's the second element that I talk about in my work, so that you have this ongoing relationship that you're building with these people over time to support them primarily. And then in this kind of screwy way of doing the Pareto principle, it's 80% of your time giving to your network and 20% of your time asking for favors to build up this flow over time. And that leads to this third idea of thought leadership and branding. And people will dump all over this. It's like, oh, I don't want to just, send messages on LinkedIn and curate content or comment on people's, this is boring. Why am I doing this? Well, you're doing this so that you can find out of all of this morass you can find some people whose work you respect, who respect your work, who you are aligned with. I mean, this is a way of building connections through your philosophy of work, your sense of what's going on in the world, of responding to trends and headlines and developments in your field, of being a kind of a concerned citizen as a professional, and demonstrating to the people who actually are going to be hiring you that you are committed and strategic and mindful about what's going on in the world, right? They don't want to just hire a drone to do their bidding, particularly in mid-career. They want more from you in mid-career.
Right.
So demonstrate that. Demonstrate your leadership abilities. Demonstrate your mindfulness, your vision, your understanding of what's going on in the world, how it's impacting your business. Contribute to that conversation. Build up a reputation as someone who is an engaged professional, because at the end of the day, you're one of 3 people being considered in the final round for a job. How are they going to make that decision? It's not going to be on your resume. They've tossed your resume at this point. It's like, you're in the room because the resume qualifies. They're going to make the decision based on, is this person a fit? And that means, can we get along with them? Are they going to be contributing? Are they going to be a leader? Are they a mature, mindful, emotionally intelligent person who can help us make important decisions, difficult decisions, who can find problems, not just simply solve problems? All these kinds of questions are very, very important to consider in mid-career. LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to establish that credibility.
If you think about a resume as a sort of static representation of you that in the old days got mailed around to people, I mean, the beauty of LinkedIn is not perfect, but the beauty of LinkedIn is that it gives you the ability to create sort of a living, breathing manifestation of your professional you.
Exactly.
And what a great tool. I mean, you made this point, in much of what you just said, it is a massively useful marketing weapon for you. You don't have to participate in all the things. You don't have to read everybody's personal posts that sometimes creep in. You don't have to, entertain the sales solicitations and all those things. But
it's not Facebook.
But it's a way for you to reach people that you might not otherwise get to, who might not find out about you. And, there's opportunity comes, it's a game of at bats, all job searches are a game of at bats. You just have to have one hit. And so having LinkedIn just gives you the opportunity for many more at bats than you're otherwise going to get. And to me, people who don't have a profile on LinkedIn, it's a negative when I'm looking for people, because it says like, they're not really vested in their career. Like, what are they going to be like day to day?
Exactly. It's remarkable that more people don't understand this, but the ones who do get results.
Now, you have kind of a contrarian view that older workers shouldn't hide their age.
Right. So I get into a lot of trouble on this because the conventional wisdom, and by the way, this is from younger career coaches and recruiters, is that, you don't want to call attention to your age because there is ageism out there. So you don't want them to think about your age so that you can kind of get under the radar and get in on the job and impress them with how good you are. And they're going to somehow magically forget that you're older, and you're going to persuade them that you're still valuable and still competent and hireable at your age. And I think what a terrible piece of advice that is, because it immediately puts you into a one-down position where you have to feel defensive about something which is an asset. Your age is an asset, right? It is the product of years of investment in knowledge and professionalism, in building connections and having experiences and making mistakes and having successes. And you want to hide that, right? You want to deprecate that enormous resource because someone has a particular bias or discomfort about age. What's going on here, right? So the other side of it is that if they are biased against you for your age, they're going to find out how old you are. And if by some miracle you get hired into a position with an ageist boss or an ageist team or an ageist organization that doesn't really respect you for your age, and you get hired there, and either for some reason they're not really aware of how old you are, or maybe the hair dye is working really well and you've had the nip and a tuck, and you're going to be going in there every day living a lie because you're hiding part of who you are. You're going to watch what you're saying. You're not going to talk about, it's like, oh, I can't talk about anything before 1995. I mean, come on, right? You want to be able to do your best work, be your best self. And if they don't appreciate you for everything that you bring to the table, well, screw them.
Yeah.
Right. I say this and people will say, yeah, but I need a job. I mean, it's all well and good to be so idealistic about it and to just say, yeah, I'm not going to hide my age, but ageism out there, I'm being penalized for my job. I need to get to work. And I said, well, yes, that's true. But there are people out there who will hire you because of the value that you represent. So focus on that value. Really make sure that you're stating your value and you're preempting any of the traditional concerns about age. We should talk about being overqualified and all the stuff that comes up, because it does come up and there's a way of getting around this.
Yeah, I mean, I think your point from a minute ago about wanting to go where people value, I mean, wouldn't you much rather work for somebody who hired you because of your age and experience rather than in spite of your age and experience? And so, I mean, when I talk to people, I'm in my late 50s at this point, and when I talk to my contemporaries who are out of work and they're looking for a job, I'm like, take it head on. Right? I mean, very few people I know who are in their late 50s look like they're 35. Some do, but I mean, it's like you're going to go in, they're going to have a pretty good sense of how old you are, even if you don't say, just tell them, like, explain you've still got fire in your belly, explain you still want to work, explain that you've got all this experience, and it's sort of like I think this is exactly what you're saying, turn it into an asset.
Be that person in that room, solve problems in that interview. I like to talk about job interviews as networking opportunities.
Yeah.
Where you want to go in there as a consultant. You're not in there as a supplicant saying, oh, please give me a job.
Yeah.
You're going in to say, hey, I've done the research. I understand that you guys are focusing on this. I see in the position, tell me more about the position, because the position seems to be going in this direction. Are you trying to solve A, B, and C problem? I read your balance sheet. You're a public company. I read your balance sheet and I read your last 10K. I mean, go in there with a plan. Right? Go in there proactive. What are you going to do with this job that really speaks to your strategic value as an experienced professional? Turn their head around. Don't go in there saying, well, I know you've got some questions for me. Fire away. It's like, no, you need to turn the conversation around to your agenda. And you actually need to be able to say to them, if you don't like what's going on, you need to be able to say, look, this job is not for me. Thank you very much, but I'm not the guy for this job for A, B, and C reason. What you need is X, Y, and Z. That may shock them, but at the same time, it's going to really impress them. And if the job is not right for you and they know it, and you've talked about it, they may actually have another job for you. They may actually say, well, I'm so glad you brought this up. You're probably right. We're looking for someone either with less experience or different experience, but we may have something coming up for you that might be really appropriate. Or if it's a recruiter that you're working with, I know other people in this field. Let me talk to some of my colleagues, because now that I have met with you and I see how proactive you are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I have a much better idea of where you could be effective. Let me get to work. By taking this networking attitude in the job interview, you're actually doing a better job of building a longer term set of relationships and strategies that's going to serve your superpower, what you really want to do and do well.
All that, though, it takes confidence. And I'm gonna turn another of your contrarian points back on you. Confidence comes last. Stop waiting.
Yes.
So if it comes last, how do you build it? When
Right.
you're in those situations and you're desperate for a job.
Yeah. I say that because I see too many people using confidence as an excuse for inaction and saying, well, when I feel more confident about this, I will take action. When I feel more confident about what I do, well, then I'll apply to these different jobs or jobs that are, more senior to what I've done or whatever that might be. But the basic idea is that people feel like they need to be confident in order to perform. And that's just not true. There are so many situations in life where you perform regardless of whether you feel confident or not. I mean, I think every actor goes on stage with stage fright every night, no matter if they've done that play 1,000 times. There is always stage fright. As a matter of fact, when they don't experience the stage fright, they know something's wrong, because you need that adrenaline to propel you into that experience. And you can take the fear and turn it to your advantage, because your fear means that you are attuned to threats, and you're looking for ways of getting over the obstacles. You're concentrating harder. There are all sorts of reasons why that fear supports your performance. Whereas confidence, I don't know, it's nice to have confidence. Confidence comes last, because once you've done it, you're able to feel like, yeah, I feel good that I actually achieved that. And I braved the obstacles. I braved my own fears to go through and achieve that, or fail and learn the lesson, because you can become confident from having failed a lot, right? So I just say that because, again, people use this as an excuse to not do something. And I said, just do it anyway.
An alternate way of thinking about that is sort of saying, like, be confident today, you'll prove your confidence tomorrow, because if you don't ever start, I think this is your point. It's like, if you keep waiting for, well, I want to wait until this, I want to wait until that, you will never do it.
Yeah. There's no perfect time. People will say, well, I feel like I need to wait another 3 months in this job before I'm going to feel confident enough to go get another job, or whatever that might be. This is all BS. This is all your fear holding you back.
And let's come back to being overqualified. You wanted to talk about that a few minutes ago. So let's come back to that.
This is a typical situation that people encounter, where they'll apply for the job and the response is, well, aren't you a little overqualified for this job? And in some cases, that is true. You are applying to a job that requires a lot less experience, where it really is a job that is at an earlier stage. So for example, if you've been a director or senior director and you're applying for a manager job, they're going to wonder, why are you doing this? Are you doing this because you are using this as a stepping stone to get a director job? And this is your way into the company? Well, we don't want that. All sorts of suspicions come up around that. So two things. One is, first, you got to really decide what your motivation is, because in some cases, people are spraying and praying and applying to jobs which they really don't want to do, but they can do, but they really don't want to do them.
Yeah.
And they need to work. So they're applying. I had a client once who was a mechanical engineer and an MBA, and he was working in a consultancy, nonprofit consultancy. He was in the automotive industry and hated his job, hated the company. It was just, and he would go home at night and he would do what I began to call job board porn, where he would look at these jobs on the job boards and he would send me these job postings. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And 5 years experience, 8 years experience, 9 years experience, 12 years experience. And I said to him, do you really think they're going to hire you? You've got 25 years experience. You're a double, terminal degree guy. I said, you got to get your head out of that. You've got to start thinking more about what it is that you do and representing yourself better. The other side is, you get to a certain point in your career and you're not interested in climbing the ladder anymore. You're not interested in the responsibilities of a senior director or a VP. You don't want the headaches. You just want to go back to what you love to do. And it's in that job. And you're not interested in the politics. You're not interested in all of the trappings of climbing the ladder. Communicate that. That's a really valid reason. And it supports, I think, you doing the job better than anyone else, because you're not there for ulterior reasons. And if you can communicate that and nail that and make them understand that, no, you're applying because this is really what you want to do. You don't want to do anything else. You've been through all of that experience, and what you really want to do is this. And that's all you want to do. So you're going to be on point. You're going to be loyal. You're not going to be complaining. You're going to be a mature worker because you've done it all, right? So you're going to be very reliable, and you're probably going to be able to mentor a lot of other people. You're going to be a fantastic addition to that team. So there's a way of turning it around, but you've got to understand your intention. You've got to be able to express it.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to take that job that maybe is below your peak level of qualification, and that's just what you want to do at that point in your life, that's fine. Like you say, you just have to be upfront on it.
This also goes to ways in which the workforce is changing. And this idea of the 60-year career, I don't know if you've kind of heard about this, but people are talking about this idea of the 60-year career as opposed to a 40-year career. And in the 60-year career, the idea of this kind of intentional overqualified thing is a lot more understandable, where you have different periods in your career. Maybe an early period, you're kind of climbing into levels of responsibility. But then you're going to take a break. Maybe you're going to go back to school. Maybe you're going to do some volunteer work. Maybe you're going to take a sabbatical. Maybe you're going to do something that is a subset of what you used to do. And then maybe you'll come back in another period where you're doing something again that's more senior level. So work is not going to be as linear as it has been coming out of the industrial age, because we're no longer in a linear industrial age mindset. We're in a networked, more nuanced kind of approach to getting things done. So just kind of offer that as a way of really looking at this and expanding the mindset beyond what we're used to in terms of a 40-year career. You get good education, you work for 40 years, you get to retire. Doesn't work like that anymore.
It's true. It's funny, just last week. So as I mentioned, I live in London. Boston's really home for our family. So I still read the Boston Globe, pretty much every morning. And so there was an article in the Boston Globe last week about Northeastern honoring Michael Dukakis, who, for those of you who don't know, was governor of Massachusetts, ran for president back in the 80s. And I thought, oh my gosh, did Michael Dukakis die? No, they were honoring him because he was retiring. He's 90 years old and he's retiring from working at Northeastern University. So, here's a guy who probably had a 70-year career.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
It was just a nice story that, he kind of kept vibrant even after his term as governor and in politics. And, certainly what Jimmy Carter's done over the years post his presidency would be another great example of somebody who, had a whole post-career, post-political career that just went on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah. The important thing about that for me is that we can do great things beyond that window that we used to think of as career. And I challenge people about this all the time in terms of longevity and retirement and the idea of, well, if you're going to live to 90, do you want to spend 30 years of your life in retirement?
And it's interesting. I'm certainly, again, late 50s. I'm seeing more of my contemporaries retire. And, for me, I just can't envision that yet. I'm not ready to completely, take my foot off the gas pedal.
They'll be back.
Yeah. When the golf or the tennis or the pickleball leads to one too many injuries, and then they go back to work.
Yeah. Or it just becomes a routine that they feel like, oh my God, I'm on the outside of all the stuff that's happening. Yeah. Right. They're going to miss the engagement.
Obviously, you say you work with mid-career people. You clearly are working with people who are probably a little bit maybe later in their career, unless they're doing the 60-year career thing, in which case 50 is the midway point. But, when you are working with people who are in their 50s, and they're looking for jobs, are they looking to keep doing what they've been doing, or are they looking to make a change and kind of go find something that meets their purpose or is completely different? What do you see in your experience?
Rarely am I seeing people who want to do something completely different. Usually what I'm finding is people they've hit a wall. They're having trouble reconciling what they're doing with their sense of purpose. And they're trying to kind of resynthesize and rediscover that connection between self and purpose and work and day-to-day. And impact. Legacy comes up a lot. What's the legacy that I'm building here? I don't want to just kind of be going on inertia forever here. I want to make something of this. So how do I take what I'm doing or what I think I love to do and kind of reinvent the value proposition around that? How do I really drill down on what's important to me and integrate all of who I am and what my values are and what my skills and talents are and the relationships that I have and this lifestyle that I want to lead and the responsibilities that I want to take on or not during a day or during a week, and how do I make something of that? that really is the process that people are going through. So where they end up, I'm agnostic about that. They may come to a point where they're going, I am going to ditch it. I am going to become a painter and move to Tahiti, or they may say, I'm going to start a consulting practice, or I'm going to buy into a franchise, or I'm going to, become a college professor. It goes into all sorts of areas that are all fascinating. And what I say to people a lot is, at the beginning of an engagement is, I'm not here to tell you where you're going to end up. And what will likely happen is we'll work together for our coaching period. And then you're going to call me in a year and you're going to say, you're never going to believe what I'm doing, because something will have happened and some surprise thing will happen, but it will all make sense. In retrospect, it will all make sense. You will see how all these steps led to this particular decision.
Before we shift topics, any last thoughts you have on job advice for people who are in career transition, particularly if they're sort of in the latter half of their careers?
Yeah. The other thing I would say, that I say to people all the time, is stop applying to jobs online and start building relationships. Really focus on having conversations with people and meetings, get feedback, talk about what you're doing, open yourself up to different points of view, talk to people with whom you have long-standing relationships, who know you well. Prior bosses are great for this, to get some feedback on being at this point in your life. Don't kind of hide and think this is something that you have to do on your own. Make it a collaborative effort, because people are looking to help you and support you. They need to know more about who you are, why you do what you do, what your hopes, fears, dreams, visions may be, so they can help you manifest them.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, you're 50 years into your career. What keeps you going? How do you keep your battery recharged and your energy for getting up and going to work every day?
I get off a call with a client and I feel just fantastic. I feel I am blessed to be working with thoughtful, probing, reflective, ambitious people who want to do more with their lives, and who have this and are discovering this reservoir of value inside them. And I just get a great kick out of being this mirror to reflect their own brilliance back to them, and help provide some kind of guidance to help them do what it is that they discover that they want to do. It's enormously rewarding. I never really expected to be in this position. I never really expected to have that answer to that question, which I never knew existed.
Yeah.
So it's been a gift.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's great that you can feel such passion for what you do every day. I mean, that's what all of us should aspire to.
Again, it is a tremendous gift. So I'm very excited to keep doing this and keep working with people.
Any last career lessons you want to share before we close out?
At the end of the day, it is all about relationships. And I would say the other thing is just to be open to the journey. It really is about that journey, and set goals, absolutely, but be open to the course corrections and just enjoy the ride.
Yeah, certainly I hear from a lot of people, like I ask a common question, what would you tell your younger self? And one of the things I hear from people is worry less. Another thing that I hear from people is seize the opportunities, take the risk, right? Pick up the phone, take the call, hear out the offer, even if it's something completely different from what you envision yourself doing, some sort of similar to the people who call you a year later and say, you're not going to believe what I'm doing. It's, there is magic in serendipity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Well, thanks for doing this. It was great to get to know you and to talk a little bit about the work you're doing and your broader background. So I appreciate
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Have a good day. I want to thank John for joining me today to discuss his work with mid and late career professionals, a little bit about his work in Hollywood, and his thoughts on job searches and career transitions. If there's a key message here, it's that you should take control of your career journey. And that is what Pathwise is all about. So if you're interested, become a Pathwise member. Basic membership, again, is free. You can also sign up on the website for our newsletter and follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Career Sessions, Career Lessons. We hope the nuggets of wisdom shared today help guide your path to the successful career of your dreams. This podcast series is part of Pathwise.io, which is here to help you live the career you want. We provide a comprehensive mix of career and professional development events, insights, tools, and exercises backed by a group of leading coaches and other career management experts. If you aspire to something more or just something different in your career, join us at Pathwise.io. You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. See you again on the next episode.